on there. You can see them anytime Trump is somewhere. You often see them. I think also the question and what we're hearing tonight. You mentioned the Republican convention that is starting in Milwaukee on Monday, where Trump and many of his surrogates were slated to travel to as soon as tomorrow. We are told it is still expected to go forward. We'll see if that changes as the night progresses and as this investigation is getting underway. But security was already an issue there. The footprint, the RNC wanted it to be wider than what it was. I do think this is only going to make it and the Democratic convention in Chicago in a month from now only even more intense as they're learning more about this.
I do. To the point we just made, we have new video, and it's from a BBC interview with a man who claimed to be an eyewitness who was also outside the perimeter of this. We cannot independently verify his account, but we think it's important you see. Take a look.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
I want to bring in our John Miller as well. John, I'm sure you've seen that interview. What do you make of it? Clearly, it raises certainly a lot of questions.
Serious questions. And it's consistent with what police have been getting in their interviews with people who saw this guy cross the field and climb this roof. But the question it raises is, he's saying they're pointing him out to the police, and the police are, I guess he's not clear about how they're reacting, but he said they're running around. Are they communicating with others to say, who is that on the roof? He says they are pointing to the Secret Service guys on the next roof and pointing to this roof and saying, do you see this guy? And that's going to be all that communication about who is this individual? Is it law enforcement or is it someone else? If it's law enforcement, they should already know that, which has got to be setting off alarms. And in a very short time between him being spotted up there on the roof with the rifle and the incident, there's going to be an extraordinarily, excruciatingly detailed examination about who knew what, how was this communicated, and who determined to take what action or not take what action as they sorted out who this person was before he opened fire, at which point they took immediate action. But this is going to be deeply examined for a long time.
John, you were talking about the number of shots and the sort of the grouping of them. It seemed to me that there were sort of 3 separate. There was an initial few, then there was another several, and then it seemed to me there was a third which seemed louder and produced more screams from somebody in the crowd, and that seemed to be off to the left of the former president. Is that your understanding as well? Because you had said that you thought the second grouping was the counter snipers hitting the shooter. It seemed to me that there was a sort of a single shot later on, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, all I've gone by is the audio I've heard since this video had been played on our air. But what you hear is 2 to 3 shots in rapid succession. It is likely that that is the shooter from the roof. And then you hear 5 to 7 shots in more rapid succession from multiple weapons being fired at the same time. It is likely that that is the counter sniper team's response. That said, you can only glean so much from sound, and we don't have the requisite pictures of either side of that, at least not yet.
Right. All right. John, thank you. We'll check in with you. Wolf, let's go back to you.
All right, Anderson. CNN's Jeff Zeleny has new reporting on how this will change potentially next week's Republican convention in Milwaukee and indeed the rest of the campaign. What are you learning?
Well, talking to Republican officials tonight, they say the convention is proceeding as planned on Monday. In fact, just a few moments ago, a statement was sent out from the top senior advisors to the Trump campaign. Let me read a part of that. It says, President Trump looks forward to joining you all in Milwaukee as we proceed with our convention to nominate him to serve as the 47th president of the United States. As our party's nominee, President Trump will continue to share his vision to make America great again. That is signed by Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, as well as the chairman of the Republican National Committee. So, Wolf, the convention is on, but this will be no ordinary convention. This is no ordinary moment in our political discourse here. 115 days remain until the end of this campaign, and they are entirely different now than we thought just a few hours ago. A few examples are these. The Biden campaign has suspended its advertising. They are not advertising in Pennsylvania or other battleground states. The president, of course, we saw earlier tonight saying that this type of political violence has no place. Former presidents have weighed in. We've heard from former President George W. Bush, former President Barack Obama, all saying that with President Bush calling it a cowardly attack, President Obama saying that there's no place for this type of violence in American politics. So, Wolf, we have now, we never know what presidential campaigns will be about. They change throughout the course of the campaigns. Now, violence and this will be a central part of the conversation here. But Republicans gather in Milwaukee on Monday to nominate Donald Trump. We do not know exactly when he will be traveling there. He was scheduled to go tomorrow. That schedule could change. We shall see. He also has the biggest decision yet of his campaign to announce his vice presidential running mate. We expect